What you have in front of you, I might, for the guys in the back, try to like that. These are 5 questions. We're going to do a little bit of a peer review. When I do peer review, I like to keep it spare. But these are important questions. Now, the thing you should know before we dive into this, as a student, when I was a student, I always hated peer review. I thought it was a waste of time, whatever. Peer review, about 20% of it is in the hope that you can help your partner with whatever that is, okay? 80% is actually about you. And this is what teachers never told me. I imagine they've never told you. When you sit down with your work, in whatever shape it's in, you are prone to, we all are, prone to thinking it's better than it is. And there's reasons for this, but you might fill in logical gaps. You might skim over something not realizing that it's junk, just because your brain fixes it as you go. That's just how it works. You know what you meant. The trouble is none of us do. So you do peer review exercises to train that editorial muscle, okay? It's much easier. You're going to see all the problems in somebody else's stuff. But the idea is if you do that enough, that muscle gets a little stronger, and then when you go look at your work, you notice more of those issues too. That's what it's about. And I'll say all that to say, you should take peer review exercises seriously. I know they're not the most fun thing in the world. I do try to keep them relatively brief, but I do actually think they're helpful. All that said, what are we doing here? I'm going to have you trade here in a minute. There's an odd number of people in here, so some of you may have to trade twice. But basically what we just did in the first half of class, look at their body paragraphs, however many they may have. Do they have all the necessary parts? That's those 3 I's. Topic, sentence, evidence, analysis. Do they have all 3? God, I hope they have evidence in every paragraph, but if not, make a note of it. Your partner may appreciate it. Do they have analysis? Do they have topic sentence? Do they attempt a topic sentence? It may not be successful, but are they at least trying to have one? If not, let them know. Are the topic sentences argumentative? You may not be sure, but take a swing. Why or why not? Make your own argument as to why you think they're argumentative. Is their evidence properly formatted? We did a little bit this at the top of class, right? Line breaks, line numbers, parenthetical, quotation mark, all that stuff, nuts and bolts stuff. Do you see any holes in their argument? This is actually a 2-parter. This one is, do they make any leaps? Like in the very last example we looked at, they were talking about Bobby Souttarth, and they mentioned war. And I asked you, war, how did we even, Philippines is how they got there. But that's a huge hole in their argument. They just expect us to fill it in. It's like, no, you got to do that, right? That's one. Number 2, are they using all of their evidence effectively? There's different ways to take this. So again, with the examples we looked at, that very first quotation, that huge quotation, they were not using all of that effectively. It turns out they were only focused on one word, so they could probably trim. The other way to take that is, well, there's more of your quotation here. Is there anything else you could say? Is there anything else you could dig into, right? And then lastly, I like an open-ended one. Any other suggestions? Anything you notice? Hey man, you spelled the teacher's name wrong, stuff like that. People spell my name wrong a lot. It's kind of weird. I get Tom Paine a lot. Like Common Sense, American Revolution, Tom Paine. It's kind of fun. Anyway, now that you guys have done that, you've done a couple things. Number 1, hopefully, you thought about the paper in a slightly different way. I mean, for a couple of reasons. Number 1, again, this is the hopefully part. My questions have sort of helped direct that editorial eye I was talking about. And you got a little bit of practice with your partner's work, which is valuable, but I don't want you to forget you can apply that same mode, those same questions to your work. That's what this is really for. So if you felt like you were able to find some things in your partner's work, that's good, but real talk, do the same thing with your own. You may be surprised at what you find, specifically if you find things you don't have. So you want to fix those things. But that being said, I wanted to open the floor real quick. Any questions you guys might have about the paper, about what I'm asking you to do, anything you're not sure about, anything? Okay. I was not anticipating silence, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if that's good or bad.
How literal are you on 3 pages? Is it just under, just over?
Questions like that, I like. It's not as good as you think. Questions like that, I like to answer. I like to answer the question I think you're really asking, which is, how short can I be and still be okay?
Mine's 3.
This is how I would explain it. Over is really no big deal, and I know most of you aren't too worried about that, but I mean, it can be too long, and that ultimately varies by assignment and by professor. For instance, if it's the final paper of a semester, and say it's like a 4-page assignment, and you turn in 9 pages, only 4 pages of that thing are getting read. Like, that's what's happening. But for something like this, 3 pages. If you go like a page over, you're fine. But most you're worried about, well, what if we don't have 3 pages? I would think of it as a percentage, okay? And here's what I mean. So if you're a half page short of 3 pages, what is that, like what percentage of the assignment is that? You know what I'm saying? 2.5 pages is short. That's short. If you're a couple lines from the bottom of the 3rd page, like 3 or 4, you're pretty good. You're fine. That's about the cutoff. Now, conversely, if it's like a 5-page assignment and you're a half page short, that's still, that might be a little, but it's not nearly as bad as being half a page short on 3 pages. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I would answer that question. The longer the assignment, you get a little more leeway, in my experience. But yeah, 2.5 is probably a little short. Not crazy short, but a little short. Other questions? I should have anticipated the length question. I'll try to think of some you guys maybe aren't thinking of right now. We haven't talked about works cited. I almost never do in the first unit. We have way more important things to do. What I would ask you all to do is to attempt it. Okay? Attempt it. We will talk about it in the 2nd unit for reasons that I'm not going to cover right now. But I mean, you have different mechanisms at your disposal. I'm not sure if you've. Has anyone never done a works cited page or a works cited entry? Okay. Okay. All it is at the end of your paper, you'll say works cited here in the center, just like a title, and then you'll have an entry for each source. And in this case, we only have one source. It's your poem. So, what I would recommend, and we'll get into this more in the 2nd unit, I would actually recommend a site called easybib.com to make your citation. But then I would recommend you check that citation with another website called The Owl at Purdue. That's the online writing lab at Purdue. It's a free, both of those websites are free. But EasyBib, you plug in information and it spits out a citation. The Owl will help you make sure that citation is correct. They're not always absolutely correct. But I just want you guys to attempt to work cited for this time, like a good faith effort on that. But it'll probably look something like this. Like you'll always have the author's name first, Fairchild, comma, B.H. Fun story about his name we don't have time for today. After that would be the title of the poem. So say you're doing like Body and Soul. That's in quotation marks because it's a poem. Then you get another period. Then it would be the title of the book, which you guys don't have. That's just The Art of the Lathe. That would be italicized. you guys don't have much more information than that. But it would look something like this. Other questions about the paper or about the poems? If like this is completely open floor. Like if you have like, oh, I'm thinking about this poem, I will take that on if you like.
Whenever we discussed the
Of the book,
poem.
quotation marks.
So it's not, so only books are italicized.
Shorter works get quotation marks. Longer works get italics. And even like a long poem like Beauty, how long is it really? 5 pages? 6 pages? That's not long. You know what I mean? So it's quotation marks.
I was always taught instead of
Oh, somebody lied to you. That's straight wrong. Yeah, like anything that's book length. The way I talk about it, song titles are quotation marks. The album gets italics. Anything longer is italicized. Anything shorter is episodes of a show, quotation marks. The show itself, italics. Kind of, but everything works like that. Who told you that? What a weird thing to tell a person. Other questions? These are good. 12 hours from now, one of you is going to be sitting at your desk and you're going to go, I should have asked this. All right. Well, like I said, I wanted to move my big dumb head again. We need some kind of head dodging technology, you know? All right. Well, 11:04. I had intended to keep you guys for like another 10 or 15 minutes, have you draft some. Then I was gonna let you go a little early as like a treat. I don't know what you can really accomplish in 10 or 15 minutes. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do now, not just now, I have one more thing to say to you, because you'll sprint. I'm gonna let you go early today, okay? What I would say though, because we all want to get out of this room, let's be honest, there's no windows. Who does that? I like to share stories with you guys. Fun story from when I was a kid. I remember this, so it probably scarred me in some way. 4th and 5th grade, but really, my entire elementary school career. I was in elementary school with big, beautiful windows, right? My school was built in the 50s, I think. It was kind of old. Somewhere in there, I believe it was in the 70s that I heard later, there was a new theory. People have new theories all the time. There was a new theory that those windows were distracting to children. They wouldn't learn as well. So when I went to school, elementary school, I had big, beautiful windows, and they had erected huge brick walls right outside of them. So we had these huge windows that just looked out on like a foot from the window, brick walls. That was my elementary school. I remember those walls. I remember looking out the window going, fucking wall there. When you drive past, it's still there. It's not a school anymore. When you drive past, like, because they're just in sections. They're just where the windows are. It's not like they built a hole. They just wanted to block the windows. Yeah, I don't know. But I feel that in this room. Anyway, what I was going to remind you guys of. Final drafts are due next time. I say that's a reminder. I hope that's not news. You should know that. Also, we do not have to have Die Hard watched by next time, but I do want it on your radar. You got to figure out how you're going to watch that. You could buy it. It's out there. I have a DVD copy. You know, it's mine though. You can't have it. I also have an electronic copy because it's 2021. You could probably stream it places. I know last semester it was on Hulu, but I don't know if it still is.
It's on Google Play for $10, or you can rent it for free.
Yeah, I know you can rent it a bunch of places for like nothing. But yeah, you just sometime in the next couple days, it doesn't need to be at the forefront of your mind, but it needs to be in there. How am I going to watch this movie? How am I going to have access to it? Because you're going to need that, and it's going to suck if you have to scramble. That's pretty much it. No questions for me? Real talk? No questions.
So final draft before Thursday morning. And turn it in, turn it in.
Final draft's due Wednesday. Yes, sir. Because when we come in on Wednesday, we're going to talk about paper 2.
Oh, did I say something? That's what I meant to say.
Oh, you said Thursday. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good.
I was
Wednesday.
thinking today was Tuesday.
It's all good. It's that soft deadline. I mean, this is one of those tricky questions. If you can't get it in right before class, which most of you will do, I would say very, very soon thereafter. But yeah, it's due Wednesday. Other questions?
Should we be looking ahead at our next paper at this point?
No. Outside of Die Hard, no. Focus on paper 1. We're going to talk about paper 2 on Wednesday. We'll get into that. You don't have to worry about it. All right. I'll see you guys then. Thank you.